you see that our stage setup is not quite right, so I hope that you can see us pretty good. We always have a great conversation, William and I. And the title of the show today is The United Nations, ?
Because the United Nations is a vital part of where we're going in this new future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying we should ban the United Nations.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying we should make a true United Nations.
Right, like when we were discussing the show, because we always kind of do that, and then we just kind of ad-lib, that idea of we, you know, also is me. Upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So we equals me, not we does not equal me. Yeah.
And I hope everyone followed that.
Yeah, I was gonna...
I sure as heck didn't.
You know, what's so cool about being united is not that you have to be saying the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you do need to be on the same page. So we are on the same page, sharing our wisdom and our light with our viewers in this studio. And that's all that needs to happen right now. I mean, we don't have to be agreeing or anything,
Right.
you know? But you did do some interesting deep dive research on the United Nations. And so I'm your guest. I'm going to be interviewing you a little bit because it was
okay. Well, because of my early upbringing, the founding of the United Nations was an important phenomenon taking place when I was around 10 years old.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I was already dealing with an ununited nations with my family.
Yeah, the microcosm and the macrocosm.
Yeah, because we mixed the Irish, the Finnish, the Swedish, the Mongolian. I mean, it was like
the Ainu.
Yes, it's like whoa.
It was like the United Nations.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned to some degree how to work in a form of united. And that is our big thing now. Yes, we need the United Nations. Like it or not, we have it.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have to get involved in its manifestation.
Because what I was discovering, as I was, you were sharing information with me about that, it seems to be the same old problem solution. And you mentioned how some of the major countries like the U.S., France, Russia, the UK, and China have veto power. And then you mentioned the blue helmets. I'm like, explain the blue helmets. Explain the blue helmet thing, because that's very interesting, William.
Okay, now this is one of my bugaboos.
I love bugaboos with you. It's great.
The police force of the United Nations wear blue helmets.
Interesting.
And if you see a blue helmet, you know that you're dealing with an objective force.
Okay.
But in reality, they're not an objective force.
You gave me a couple of examples of, was it in Afghanistan where they censor women? That was one of the things that you talked about.
Yes. A lot of people don't realize that the UN was formed in 1945.
1945. It's been around for a while.
And so we've allowed, in this case Afghanistan, to maintain its belief that women are inferior.
Yes.
And so we have not stood up, as in the United Nations, we haven't stood up for allowing women to hold jobs, women to be independent,
Right.
self-motivated.
Right.
We haven't allowed Afghanistan to evolve into the united, and it's remained very separate. So it had to come down to the phenomena that just occurred, and it's still occurring.
Yes.
And the UN Blue Helmets, they could go in there and enforce women's rights.
At least put them in the position to be in line for those applications for their jobs.
Exactly.
Just similar to the civil rights movements, where the civil rights movement down south, where they had to escort the black children into the schools.
Yep.
And then it was up to everybody to kind of hold the line and evolve from there.
Mm-hmm.
But at least it started a baseline, you know?
And that's so important.
Yeah.
And this is what I was saying, is that you don't have to be anti-United Nations. You have to, though, support it. You have to encourage it. And it's people like me, little big mouth, that go that go to the United Nations and say, you know, this is happening in that case, Afghanistan. Your peacekeeping role is needed there right now. Why aren't you there?
And so, like you had shared with me, there's the five major, the United States, France, the UK, China, what's the other one? Russia,
Yes.
where they have veto power, meaning they could go and override all the other
Absolutely.
174 nations and go, too bad, we're not going to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll be an observer. Okay.
Well, then look what happened in Rwanda.
And that was another example in Rwanda, the mass genocide.
Yes. And it was not curtailed. It was actually encouraged.
Yeah.
And at that point, that veto right, the willingness to allow so many distortions. I met a young man, I was working with the Jessica McCall Foundation, and they had him come over. He had, as part of his punishment for breaking some of the no-nos,
The no-nos, there's lots of
Oh, yeah,
those systems, isn't there?
they cut both his arms off.
Seriously?
Oh no, I just made that up.
No, I mean, that's like, you know, that's the, I'm going to turn on my iPad. while we're talking. Yeah,
Yes,
you're good.
And he had to learn to live and function with no arms
And he probably did just fine, huh?
when he was allowed to.
When he there's that word allow, and you hear us talk about that, you know, the last year and a half, about how important the energy of allow is. We'll bring it full circle, because everything is energy first.
Yes,
So the energy of intention. You know, and you talked about how the United Nations doesn't make their intention or their intent public.
they don't.
Yeah, because it's to educate. You know, educate has that energy of a two, so it's to unify, to bring together, to make more better choices.
Gooder.
Gooder, better. And it's not really happening that way. It's like a smoke screen.
Well, like in Canada, they have Canadian residential schools,
Yeah,
and for only Indians.
yes.
And they get the Indian children there and they kill them.
I know. There's been...
And this happened today.
It does. And you know that the International Court in Hague
Yeah.
has issued a verdict in terms of all this COVID and all of that, and they determined that it's mass genocide, which is cool. Now, the Hague Court doesn't have a lot of teeth, but it still gives credence to and confirmation to all of us who felt that this story was kind of stinky, and it was not really about public health at all, and it was really a ploy by some of those 179 nations to centralize and control the population, to centralize and control the economies via the larger corporations. The larger corporations have gotten extremely wealthy over this whole pandemic situation, while the general population and people are experiencing at huge amounts food insecurity, shelter insecurity, because jobs and the economy, small businesses have closed down. So where's the United Nations in that?
Yeah, and you see what I'm saying is take the blue hats, send them out into the Canadian thing, into the Afghanistan thing, into the Congo. That's a big mess right now.
I know.
And have them go there. They don't have to carry guns, but they can say, no, you can't ban that person from getting in line.
Right.
And so they can be trained how to be aggressive in a non-aggressive fashion.
You can give people like gentle reminders and little nudges.
Yes.
Like I was amazed when you told me in Cambodia and during the
Oh, Khmer Rouge.
Khmer Rouge, that if you wore eyeglasses, they would shoot you.
I would not have survived.
That's amazing.
Our producer over there, they wouldn't have let you out in the streets. They were killing every person that wore glasses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insanity.
It's total insanity.
Oh, well, that's my opinion.
No, that's true. Like back in Alexandria where they burned all the books in the library so people couldn't read. But one thing that is really important for us to mention, because we come from more of a spiritual, universal standpoint, even though we're reporting on some pretty intense world news, you cannot stop the resonance of the heart from an outside force. You can attempt to,
Right.
and there's been a real good job of that done this last year and a half. But you can't stop the connection that happens on the inside.
Truth.
So that's what we're encouraging all of our viewers to really pay attention to things that come to you and discern. And then let them move through you, and then you decide. So it's that choosing thing that's so important.
And so I'm not making a prediction,
No.
but I am saying in your community, go to people like Renata. I can't say his name.
It's okay.
But
You're fine.
our director, producer, have him go to the United Nations and speak and say this has to change.
Our friend Doug Johnston, I remember
Oh, yes.
a while ago, and I love Doug. He's got, some interesting lean and stories on different stuff, and we don't have to totally agree. But I do recall when he had been told that he was going to die, he had a couple of months to live or whatever, he's still around. That was like you.
And that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. And he said, I was invited, Renata, to speak at the United Nations. And I'm like, what'd you do? He goes, I didn't. And I really didn't question him further, but now with our little deeper dive, I'm like, oh, because you saw the hypocrisy in that.
Right, so people like you, Monsieur,
Mauricio. You're good. We need to learn to speak Spanish, maybe.
need to go in there and talk because they need to hear from all of us, the common people.
Right. And so I'm just going to show you something on here. We just got a little glitch here. So when you look over there, just here is good. Like this, when you go, then I miss you. And you miss the audience too. So we'll just stay like this and we're fine. Okay? That keeps the focus really good.
Okay.
Just where he has the camera aimed.
So anyway, the important thing, gang, is get involved in your own community. United means separating from isolationist attitude.
It does.
And I can understand the Irish like to be with Irish people. But it's not necessary.
It's not necessary. We are a multinational multi-generational planet now. People are living longer, and so we thank you, Mauricio, and we can extrapolate the wisdom.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. We can extrapolate the wisdom from all of our ancestors and that and bring it forward.
You know, there's a well-recognized individual whose name I can't remember,
I got you.
who recently published a video that said if 99% of all of the money the wealthy companies have was to disappear,
Oh, yes, that was such a fascinating fact.
then 99% of the general populace would still not have any money.
And I asked you to repeat that twice again because it was like, wow, that sounds deep. I'm not quite getting it. And you said it again, and it's like, oh, so it's a distribution challenge that we've got going
Yes.
on our planet. We've had that distribution challenge for a long time. So a lot of the assets and wealth has been hoarded. And if all of that wealth disappeared, it's been so hoarded that nothing else would be distributed. People still would be with the same challenge. That's like a huge disparity.
Well, the same man, on one of his videos, he said, all of the big wealthy companies are raising their prices when actually they're making more money than they've ever made. And so actually they have the ability now to lower their prices. But people are so indoctrinated as to who is valuable and what is valuable that they are willing to pay the extra, but it's only making money for those companies, those individuals.
Absolutely. So
And
there's
it's
that.
not necessary.
There's that choice thing again. I mean, because all of our structures are being restructured, that we independently are creating a new wave, and we do have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone.
Yes, yes.
And to question things like the United Nations. That's why the title is United Nations ? Like, what does that actually mean?
What does it mean?
What is that actually doing to unite the nations when only 5 nations have very strong veto power, and it's about the money and the allocation of resources? I get it. So change your intention, I'd say. Don't call yourself United Nations.
That's a good one.
Change the title. United Corporations. That would be
Or-
more real.
Ununited, united.
Ununited, united.
Because the important thing is, I believe, that all of you have to get involved. Stand up for what you believe in. But standing up for what you believe in doesn't mean you have to stand up carrying a gun.
Right, or it doesn't mean you have to be super confrontational and risk your life.
Exactly.
But you do have to choose to rewrite the story. I'd say first for yourself, internally,
Good.
and then you just, you get to pick and choose because there's so many things that are being restructured now. It's not, I believe it's not a challenge to find a new cause, so to speak.
There are so many important causes. Now, may I mention one of the tulip causes?
Oh, yeah, I love that.
We
Little
have-
commercial.
My son in Hawaii has a foundation called Malama Lama K9. Rescues injured animals and gets them healed and adopts them out. And I mentioned it to a few people, and now Tula is doing a process with the Humane Society in Lakewood about the needs of the animals, so that people stand up helping other living things. And so it's important that all of you get involved with things. It's good, have your job. have your family. It's wonderful. But also get involved with what's helping create a peaceful environment.
You know, and it's not always necessary to physically, get involved if that does not fit the time frame. I believe you could write a check. That's really valuable because resources are needed. But with the Tacoma Pierce Humane Society right now, we have on our website, on the Universal Life Alliance website, I should say that slower again, the universallifealliance.org. If you go to our website, you will find the things that are needed by the dogs, and there's a contact number and emails of people who you can arrange to have those things picked up or dropped off. And in fact, at our gathering we're having tomorrow,
Yes, tomorrow day.
from 5 to 8, instead of paying the nominal fee that we have for participating in our potluck, bring some of those items that the dogs need. The dogs need. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a way. We can all energetically participate in moving forward with a lot of things.
And it is vital because with the new era that's being built, if we allow it to be built on the same foundation of the wealthy, it's no one's fault except ours.
Well, if
We have to stand up and say, count me too.
they say history repeats itself,
Oh, yes.
but maybe herstory won't. I'm just saying that we've had 5,000-year rule or longer of the dominant male energy, and possibly it's time for the dominant rule of the feminine energy. So we want to make it a better world for all of us.
For all of us.
For more of a win-win. And I think a lot of our viewers know what we're talking about. They have felt disparity in a lot of different areas. It's not saying that your life is horrible. I'm not implying that. My life is good.
No, yeah.
But there's lots of disparity outside of us. And so one of our contributions as influencers in this world is to speak up about things and to encourage you to discern when things come to you and they don't feel quite right. Honor that they don't feel quite right. Don't try to make a good story, a bad story, a good story.
Right.
Not necessary.
And so back to the case of the Indian schools where they're killing kids. I mean, it's... Don't just know it's happening. Stand up and say, this is not right. We're the blue hats.
Do a little research. I heard a word. Personal archaeologist.
And I happen to love that.
Yeah, because we all know archaeology. They dig and find the artifacts, and then you get some
Yes.
more information. So we all have to be the personal archaeologist in our own life, like regardless of how your upbringing was.
Yes.
Self-parent, self-love, self-care. That's what the deal is. Don't be a victim. Don't be blaming somebody. Go in there and shift your story.
And it again, you don't have to do it with violence. You can do it with statement. Do your shopping at the Goodwill store, at the big supermarket. There's all kinds of things you can do.
You can make a contribution. If you're not an avid recycler and you don't recycle everything, okay. I remember once when we lived in Seattle, we got our recycling garbage taken away from us because my mom would throw the tuna cans and then the house would smell. I'm like, So I was done with all of it. So I would just throw it away wherever. They put a note in our garbage can, you're fired from recycling. I'm like, oh, okay. But fast forward many years later, I make a lot of alchemical blends with essential oils and that. So I decided I can contribute by recycling all my bottles. So I recycle all my bottles. That's like my commitment. I recycle all my bottles, and I shop almost exclusively used. All my clothes come from the Goodwill or Value Village, or and I love finding that kind of stuff. So I share that gift, And if, one of our viewers has that, you're good. So go out and find some of those recycled dog clothes, those collars,
Sure.
all that stuff, and bring that to one of the gatherings, or, collect some of that stuff. Because dogs need to look pretty, too.
And at our gatherings, it's not to be preached at, it's to share ideas. People talk about all kinds of things totally unrelated to what you believe in as far as religion, but believe in the religion of knowing who you are, knowing what you are, and saying it's no longer right for government to massacre people. Like in the Ukraine,
Yes.
they had a conflict in the educational system. You've all read about this. And they herded the children, their parents, and the teachers into a school and set the school on fire. That took care of that problem.
Yeah.
And so it created another bigger, more problem.
Even when we were having a discussion about this, I had to admit that I grew up in a time where competition was important in school,
Yes.
and to achieve an A was more important than to achieve a C. I got that message early on in school. So, I would strive to get the good grade, but I did not retain the information.
True.
On the other hand, and that was the way the system was set up, they didn't encourage retention. But on the other hand, George is contributing to our discussion, and he said, well, gee, when I was growing up in school, we might have a subject, but then if people were interested in a little deeper dive, our teachers would totally, go the other direction, so we could be stimulated to learn.
Yes.
So George could have been a really excellent teacher. He really could.
George is Renata's husband, and he's
actually quite brilliant.
I think it's beyond that.
He's just very low key, but I appreciate his knowledge. I got a history lesson from both of you.
And I said to George recently, I don't know what this letter that I received, I have no idea what it says. I can't figure it out. I said, would you at least look at it?
Yeah.
3 minutes later, he explained the letter, and it was clear. He's a fun man.
He's got a great intuitive sense. But, he doesn't let everybody in. We're in his inner circle. I am for sure, and I think you're in there too. You know what I mean?
I believe I am.
I believe you are too. So it's like you have to, again, don't judge the book by its cover, or even the person behind the mask these days, because there's some reasons why people still wear the mask, even though this whole thing is like dissolving totally. So, look for the brightness in the eyes, I say, and have a conversation. That's a big part of what I do these days. We just go out and talk to people, and get them to laugh and smile. I know you do the same thing. So,
me?
I love some of your stories that you share with me. Because people look at you and think because you've got the two crutches that you're, poor William, and they have no idea. You're handy capable, and there's a lot of people out there like you.
There are.
Oh my goodness. And then, you're in that senior and beyond age as well, and you're still here, having survived many challenges that they said you would not.
Well, when this hip thing happened 31 years ago, they told my kids he might live another 5 years. That was 31 years ago.
Yeah, so, we had a little bit of this conversation, like, I wonder what it is for people that are in our community that are healers, metaphysical, and all of that, and they don't allow a new script to they don't allow, our producer just crawled across the floor.
Oh, she's wonderful.
They don't allow a new script to unfold for themselves.
Write your own script. Write a new script.
Write a new story for yourself. That's really the deal. Write a new story for yourself.
And if you don't know how to write a new story for yourself, talk to your neighbor, talk to your lover, Talk to your ex-lover. Do get involved.
Come to some of our gatherings, because that really is
Yes.
a big part of the intention of the Universal Life Alliance, which was founded in 1974 by Reverend William Rainin. That's what Reverend William
Yeah, that's
Rainin,
me.
right here. That's him, right here. And it was about shifting consciousness one thought at a time. Obviously, your consciousness one thought at a time, but we have escalated that ability because we are globally connected now with our, internet of everything. You can find out
Yes.
a huge amount of information, so much so that one can be overwhelmed by the onslaught of information that comes, truly. And so discernment is super important. You don't have to know everything. In fact, sometimes it's good. What was your word you used? I love that one. We were talking about unlearning, unknowing. It was a good one. Did you write it down?
No.
Okay. Maybe if you look in your book, because it was like, okay, we're not really, but it was a good word. And we're always making up words.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was a good one, like the personal archaeologist. That was mine. That's okay. It might come up. Because some of our stuff is kind of juicy, and it just kind of comes on the fly.
So back to the United Nations. Get involved in your community. And if you don't want to go and stand in front of that crowd in Manhattan, your child might like doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And many of our children, I'm going to really step in it this time. Many of our children are able to accomplish a great deal more than our ex-ambassador, Shirley Temple Black.
Oh, you did mention that one, yeah. She was the delegate to the United Nations.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And many of our high school kids, or that German girl, Greta, who is so involved in saving our planet. And the big wealthy are trying to repress her. She doesn't take it. She just keeps on going. She's just a kid. Our kids can do it in a non-violent way.
I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, Anne Marie, and she is in a situation where she stays with her daughter, but the house is divided. And she's like, I really can't go upstairs. I'm like, oh, wow. There's like this separation that's happening in family units with the whole COVID mandate and the mask and the vaccine, not vaccine. It's really an insane story. And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, but check this out. You just told me that you went out in public and you were a little more confrontive than you normally are with like service people. And I'm like, that's the balance. You're not doing it at home, but you're allowing yourself to go out and let that be felt in other ways.
Yes.
That bridging. But sometimes the bridge, you got to speak up. And
Have to speak up.
best way you're able to do that, sometimes I can blow up or say things pretty intensely, confrontively, but then I am also, on the other hand, I will come back and say, put foot in mouth, I apologize, forgive me, and I'm serious about that. Because it's not necessary always to stay with the whatever it is. We're shifting more in the now than we know. We are shifting more in the now than we know, and that's what's so important. And I think I mentioned Anne Marie because Anne Marie is one of my new friends that does human design. And human design as a tool is so valuable, and she's going to be one of our guest bloggers
Good.
on the Universal Life Alliance. In fact, if you go to the website, again, it's on the bottom of our screen, theuniversallifealliance.org, you will see a couple different categories. You will see William's blog, which are some great articles that that you actually written for all your work you've done in Japan in the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all the articles, but that's the representation of the work that you do. Yeah, blah. And then you'll see the Tula blog, which is a generic blog of different kinds of stories. And we just recently invited guest bloggers. So if some of you out there have information to share,
Good.
that's a great thing. So that makes it a nice resource for people and for your friends that would like to know information as well.
Yeah, because that's part of standing up now and being heard
Absolutely.
so that we can create.
Absolutely.
Because, this is not the first time that we've had to rebuild our society.
No, yeah.
And always it's gone back to who had the most money.
Right, and even the times of Atlantis, it's the misuse of power
Yes.
and resources. So,
Lemuria, same thing.
we've got lots of practice now.
Yep.
Maybe we need to stop practicing
I love it.
and really move forward with sharing our wisdom and sharing our knowledge.
Yes.
And not being afraid. Like, all of you matter. Like, I matter. Like, you matter. Everybody matters. Everybody has value. I love that word value because it's a 7. 7's about introspection. It's about your own philosophy. You're a double 7, by the way, when I did your numbers. And so I get where, you dive deeply for your own level of discernment. You want to follow your truth, blend it with all the things that are out there, and you stand by that. And that's why I respect you and love you, because you don't give lip service to what you say. You are what you say.
And if you don't like it, that's okay. You have the right to your own opinion. But at least allow me to have my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has
And
the right to
I
be.
have, I don't always agree with Renata. Renata doesn't always agree with me. But we are connected.
We certainly are. I mean, this has been going on for the last, 4 or 5 years. Like, I've been thinking about them, like when you're in Japan or something, or down in Portland, used to live there, and I'd pick up the phone. I was just getting ready to call you. Or there'd be an email. I mean, that connection, that's really cool. Have you started to notice the new time frame, that synchronicity?
Oh, very important.
Pay attention to that one.
Very, very important.
That's the instant manifestation that a lot of us talk about. It doesn't have to be the big things. It's the small things. Pay attention to those.
And that's part of why you've heard me say over the years, take a different road to wherever you're headed. Try something new and different.
When I met you many years ago through, I think Maria and Larry, but anyhow, we ended up doing a lodge, Bernice, grandmother. And so that was where I got acquainted with a lot of things. And you would do presentations. I hate to say lectures, but you would talk there. And I remember you were encouraging all of us at the time, go home a different way. Walk backwards.
Oh, yes.
And, because there is that mental entrainment. We get grooves in our sense of perception in our brain. We wear a rut in there.
Yep.
And that's kind of what that multimedia assault is happening with a lot of people now, why they're so comatose and they're not catching, any of the story. They don't feel they can create something new.
Because the people that don't try new directions, new concepts, they find it difficult to deal with the changes.
Right, and everything that is constant right now is constantly changing.
Yeah.
That's what's going on now, and you're the center.
And the exciting thing is, none of it is right, none of it is wrong.
I know, and that's like in this kind of duality that we live in, but there's like a central neutral, and it takes a lot to get to that that neutral point, so I'm finding when I can straddle that middle, it's not being wishy-washy. It's not a wishy-washy thing.
Oh, no.
It's actually a firm commitment to follow your own truth once you feel that.
And all of you, please remember, your spirituality has nothing to do with religion.
No.
Your spirituality is attitude of who you are, what you are, and moving forward with it. And sometimes what you think of as moving forward looks like you're walking backwards.
Yeah, what's that saying? 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, yeah.
We could do a little 2-step dance, huh?
And so it is important. Try new things.
Mm-hmm.
Do new things. If you judge me, then why not try living me for a day?
Mm-hmm. Walk in another person's shoes, huh?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, that turns around a lot of my judgments.
Oh, yes,
When
yes.
it's pointed out to me that, oh, gee, Renata, you're a little not very flexible. And like, I can own, yeah, there's some things I'm not real flexible about. Okay. Just own it. You're okay. You don't have to be flexible on everything.
Of course not.
There's just some ways that you are, like, personality and all of that. So you're good, But it's like, there again is this misnomer out there. I like to call it the dangling carrot syndrome.
Oh, God.
Where there's just the right way to meditate, there's just the right way to be, and then you'll be happy. That is like the biggest lie that's been perpetrated on our planet. Your happiness is not dependent on anybody.
It isn't.
It's dependent on you. And what is happy for me may not be happy for you.
Truth.
But what is happy for you could be happy for me. When we laugh together, it's like, oh, that's a happy moment. I love it.
Yeah.
And so we can store that happiness in that sense of real purpose, which is to shine your light. I keep it simple. The rest of it is like just the life experiences. Don't make it so hard.
And remember, every experience that comes to you, it has a purpose. You don't have to know what that purpose is. Often what's happening to me is actually creating balance in another part of the world.
And I still am not able to wrap a lot of my head around that. Intellectually, I totally understand you. Mm-hmm. But do I feel that all the time? No. Do you know what I mean? But it's okay, because I get enough reminders, and I'm like, I stretch a little bit further, like, oh, wow, that's deep. Even just recognizing, which to me is like recognizing. Never mind. I was going to repeat this little show. Recognizing, re-remembering, and that is the cornerstone of awareness.
Yes. Oh,
because that triggers other things.
Of course it does. Yes.
And then for me, when I have a challenge, I can come full circle up above things many times, and then like, oh, wow. And then it sinks back down to, wow, that's deep. So you mean I really do matter? How I say things, how I be with things really does matter. We're like the ripple in the pond. We're impacting everything. And part of the training is that we've been taught that we're supposed to know what that looks like. I call
Yeah, well, really?
No, that's misnomer. Knowledge is highly overrated in terms of thinking that you can know everything and then you're good. Let me just put everything to be known in a little box here, and I'll just carry it around with me and pull out the answer. Ooh, that's the challenge with our educational system, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, spiritual discernment. And what does that mean? Be spiritually discerning with your tools.
And this is part of what you can stand up for. Now, include the educational system.
I know.
Because the one we have is not going to work in whatever we're building now.
Did you say? Fukaka.
Yeah, we have to build now an educational system that will fit this new era that we're creating.
And all of our structures, as we participate in them, are the educational system.
Yes.
The education of life, the education of lifestyle,
yes.
And how you vote with your dollars. If you, maybe like me, has a thing with companies that are a little too Gestapo with the non-existent mask mandates, but they're still holding on to that because it's comfortable, I just don't shop there. I don't give them my money.
That's easy.
I just don't.
You don't.
I don't go my pocketbook. And when they shift a little bit, I went into Nordstrom's the other day. I got some new face powder because I noticed on the show I was a little pasty. Whatever. I don't wear makeup a lot. So I'm like, and it was a pleasant experience. And I told the girl, I'm like, I'm glad to see that Nordstrom's has kind of changed their viewpoint on forcing people to wear a mask when it's totally unconstitutional and totally illegal. I'm glad they've decided to let people choose. And the girl was like, yep. I'm glad with that. So, again, for me, I like to give that information as to why I'm there, because it seems to be important now, because a lot of people are still scared.
And fear attracts fear.
Yes, it does.
Fear attracts virus.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a friend. You'd be surprised, but I actually have one friend. No, I have a friend, and she had big health challenges. Mm-hmm. And so I said to her, what has made you laugh in the past? Mm-hmm. And so she finally caught it and started remembering when she was having pain, fear, just find something to laugh at. She's getting stronger and stronger.
You gotta redirect the energy.
When they say you can't walk, you can't go camping in the jungle anymore, I laugh. I say, well, watch me. It'll be entertaining, because I'm still going to do it. Mm-hmm. I just might stagger a lot.
Reminder, just because we didn't get an instruction manual for our temple doesn't mean there isn't one.
Booful.
Doesn't mean there isn't one.
Yep.
And so in that self-discovery, those little gaps where you're like, oh, could that happen again? Yeah, betcha.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I meet countless people. You're one of my good friends. That's an example of that energy where you re-instruct your temple.
Constantly.
Well, now our producer and our other side person has left the audience, but I think we're still on screen talking. I think we're good. Yeah.
We are unless we aren't.
We are unless we aren't. And part of our thing is like the show must go on. And adaptability is super important. And just your presence in someone's life is the present that gets unwrapped. That's a big thing.
That's a good statement. I like that. It's
Thank you.
full of images.
Yeah, I love
And
images.
that's what good communication is, when you put images with anything you say. If you say, I love you, but inside you're saying, and if I had a gun, I'd stick it up your nose.
What's interesting, though, with a lot of people, I'm sure, is you start to feel the disparity between what people say and what they really feel.
Yes.
Or you catch yourself saying something, but you really don't feel it, because a lot of people are super empathic, and they haven't been taught to honor that.
Yes.
So they just pick up everybody's stuff thinking it's theirs, and then like when someone points out to them, oh, no.
You know who really messed up, I think, the empathy thing was Star Wars.
Oh, the Star Trek thing. And
Star Trek.
And,
Well, all of their empathists, they all got sick. They all got headaches. Mm-hmm. They all got, well, please.
Mm-hmm. I mean, empathy is highly overrated if you don't have empathy for yourself.
Oh,
that was
a big
good. Wait,
one.
sometimes we get stuff that comes and we just have to write
That's
it down.
a big one.
So do we remember that one? I heard that
That
song.
deserves its own page.
Yeah, and so empathy. We're taking a moment to write down. Do a lot of you carry like a little journal with you, or start writing down your thoughts, or even paying attention to your dreams? We'll
Yes.
have to do another show on that dream thing,
Okay.
on the dream energy. And what we decided to do, like with the next several series on the show, we talked about having guests, but because we're a little bit in transition, and I'm producing this show, that's kind of a new thing, we decided that William's going to be a perpetual guest. Ha! You've got so much wisdom that we're going to impart some of that knowledge to our viewers.
Well, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
And all of you, when you gather a little glow of what Renata knows, what William knows, it's only what we know. Now you take it and find out how to make it manifested in your life. Experiment with it. Explore with it. Take a different road to work.
I got that written down. Empathy is highly overrated unless you have empathy for yourself. Because that was a really good one. So I wrote that down now. And you know that it sounds simple. Take a different road. And I've heard you say that a bunch of times. You
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Simplify, don't make it complicated. I've heard you say that. I'm kind of a point here, you know? That finally, after several years, starts to sink in. And then I listen to that. When I get overly complicated, I still love my knowledge and have my books and all that.
Sure.
I write in and highlight. But then I'm condensing all of it now because you can. It's an energy. Once you have your wisdom and knowledge, it's an energy that you can just...
Knowledge is an energy.
It's an energy, and you can share that. We talked about praying and how a lot of cultures pray, but they don't call it praying.
Right.
And when you see something that's discouraging to you, I learned a while ago, you can just send that blessing out by holding your hand up like this. That's what I do. And you're like, yeah, there's lots of ways like that. But people have been taught, there's that carrot thing, that you got to go to church, be on your knees, and maybe you got to be a Catholic to do that. I don't know. I have no idea what the truth is for a lot of people. But keep it simple, and if you feel called to do something, to be a certain way, that you think it'll help, guess what? It'll help.
Oh, yeah.
Just because you believe it will help. Don't make yourself wrong.
There's that old saying, or it's a new saying, I don't know. Keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, yeah, all my years in Alcoholics Anonymous and that. Yeah, keep it simple. KISS, K-I-S-S.
Yes, yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid. And nowadays, when you attempt, or when I attempt to know, it's so burdensome. If I attempt to know from here, brain heavy, and not know from here first.
Sure, sure.
So heart knowing is like, you know, as the young people say, it's the bomb. You know, it's the thing.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
they say other words too. Like it's the poop, but they say like it's the shit. I'm like, when I heard somebody say that, like, what? You gotta go to the bathroom? What? But it's like the slang. You know, there's vernacular that changes. It's all good stuff.
Nothing is permanent.
Mm-mm.
And we've tried to make everything permanent.
Like it's this
And
way.
look at the mess we're in.
You know, so there's that word allow. Allow without controlling.
So get to know your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what challenge your neighborhood is facing. And then share that with the UN.
Mm-hmm.
And say, your pledge is to protect the people with education, with that. Now, help them live it.
And I just thought of something else when you said that. Get involved with the UN. You can write them a letter.
You can,
Whether they read it or not, I don't know who's responsible for that, but you can look up the number to the UN or the address.
or you can, next time you go to Manhattan, go there in person.
And then there's that energy thing. So you can intend to communicate in your dreams. You can intend to connect. You can intend to have some article or some more knowledge drop down and make a direct connection. So it's kind of an easy way to reach out. Start with the energy first. You could even write in your diary, Dear UN, I would like to, you know what I mean? And you could have an ongoing dialogue that way. It has power.
And use your spiritual power. Use your spiritual energy. And if you don't like something, shift it.
It's your job to shift it. And especially now since so many things are dissolving.
And particularly as we shift, our kids, our grandkids, and in my case, my grandkid, will have the chance to live a productive life.
Yeah, your little great Riley is 1 year and a couple days. Cool.
Try a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Because it's interesting how energy works and the memory, backwards and forwards. You can just pull it forward in your mind's eye. It's just like
Absolutely.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Got
No.
the little belchy thing. The energy of awareness is so powerful. Get to going on the inside and discover the beauty of like using your intuition to really
Exactly.
confirm what you see outside and ask what's my next step.
Well, you just push one of my buttons. Someday, let's do a show on how to use your five senses.
I think that would be. I feel like that is a probably a 2 or 3 hour, 2-part.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
I'd love to see that be an in-person one. So we're kind of exploring some ways to share
Because
some of those in
people
person.
hear us say, your 5 senses, they don't know how to use them.
And that word, personal archaeologist.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, so that would be like, dig deep and start, re-choosing and rewriting stories based on the new information that rises up inside of you. It's always been there.
Oh, absolutely.
But, you got to uncover it. And you got to be willing to uncover it. In the case of archaeology, you got to get your tools out. You got to travel to the spot, do your dream work, your shadow work.
Yeah, oh, yes.
That's the dirt of the archaeology for the
Absolutely,
personal
yep.
evolution and growth. Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be alive, I believe.
And enjoy it.
I signed up to be around at this time.
Right, you chose to be born. And I remember days when I said, I chose this?
They say Earth School is definitely a challenge.
I'll tell a story.
Please do.
I think maybe I've told it before.
You can tell it again.
When it was time to choose another life,
Yes.
I was busy having wine and visiting people, and they said, well, too late.
You missed this go around.
All of the bodies have been taken. I said, well, how about that one over there? A dog. And so I said, okay, I'll do the dog thing. And they said, why would you do that? I said, well, I can sleep with anybody. No one cares.
You're so crazy.
Okay.
So our producer's waving us goodbye. So we're going to be leaving, and we'll see you next week. Renata, I'm your host, and my perpetual guest is William. Auf Wiedersehen.
Arrivederci.